If you've been paying attention to the Formula 1 news feed recently, you've probably picked up on the fact that Roy Nissany has signed on as the Williams Formula 1 test driver for the 2020 season. With this, he will also have 3 FP1 outings throughout the season, making Nissany the first Israeli driver to compete in Formula 1 since Nissany. But in terms of unpopular driver choices, Williams is striking out faster than Cody Bellinger in the postseason. Difference is that there is a lot more Ks being thrown around with Nissany's signing. Some people are looking upon Nissany as though he's the worst thing to happen to Formula 1 ever. But as we all know, the worst thing to actually happen to Formula 1 is Star India.
That's it, I'm coming over there!
Yeah, why don't you come over here? I got something for you!
Shut up, the both of you!
But anyway, let's have a look at this kid, even if he is older than me. So Roy Nissany was born in Tel Aviv, Israel, but was raised in Europe, specifically around France and Hungary. He acquired a love of the sport at a young age, and started karting when he was 6 years old. Of course, the sport was introduced to him through his father, Johann Nissany. And if you don't know this guy, he was notorious for what happened at the 2005 Hungarian Grand Prix. Now, he did have some outings with the Jordan Grand Prix team before this, but his first proper Grand Prix weekend debut would come with the Minardi outfit. Team owner, Paul Stoddart, announced that Nissany would become the official test driver for the 2005 season, and would be given an outing at the Hungarian Grand Prix as the team's third driver, running in free practice 1 at the tender age of 42. This was primarily down to Nissany's popularity in Hungary, having spent a lot of time racing there, quite successfully might I add, but this was Formula 1 and that's a whole different kettle of fish compared to the Formula 2000 he was running in. Alas, his speed was absolutely abysmal, nearly 7 seconds slower than Christian Albers in the other Minardi, and 12.9 seconds slower than the fastest driver of the session, Alexander Wurz. But for however short his stint was in Formula 1, it was memorable for a number of reasons. Watching him drive was just painful. It was later revealed that he had complained about the car's grip, that the car had too much grip. After spinning late into the session, Nissany found himself in a position where he couldn't remove the steering wheel, and as a result, the car was hoisted in the air and off the racetrack with Nissany still inside of it. This would be the end of his time in Formula 1, at least at an official Grand Prix weekend, and the last Israeli driver to do so. Fast forward 15 years later, and his son Roy would become the next Israeli to take part in a Grand Prix weekend. But is it a case of same old, same old? Will Roy be just as inept as his father? Well, let's look at his junior career, because why not? Starting from the age of 6, his results in karting were modest. Nothing particularly bad, but nothing really of note. Nissany would make his car racing debut in 2010, driving in the Formula Lista Junior Series full-time with Deltec Racing. The competition wasn't especially stiff, but he still struggled throughout the season compared to his teammates. He did achieve a pole position at Monza, but would still finish 8th in the standings with the best race result of 4th throughout the season. In both 2011 and 2012, Nissany would drive with Milka Motorsport in the ADAC Formel Masters series. His pace picked up somewhat, and he would achieve his first win at the Red Bull Ring in 2012, but ultimately he was still not quite there on the pace front, with teammate Jason Kremer generally outperforming him in both seasons. For the next couple of years, Nissany would stay on with Milka Motorsport, but progressed up to the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Throughout both of these seasons, he once again failed to demonstrate much in terms of results. Nevertheless, he would make his first appearance in Formula 1 machinery on the 16th of October 2014, testing with the Sauber F1 team at Valencia, alongside Adderley Fong. Two drivers with about as much success in recent years as the Cleveland Browns. In an interview with Formula1.com, Nissany stated, "It was an amazing day. It was my first time driving a Formula 1 car, and it felt great. I was quite excited at the beginning, and I think I feel more experienced now. Going through the fast corners with this high amount of downforce and adapting my driving style to this car was not easy, but I managed to do everything well. I'm very happy with today's outcome, not just from my side, but also from the team's side, as everyone works very professionally. I knew the track in Valencia, so I think that was a good advantage." But of course, after 5 years of less than stellar results in junior formula, a little more was going to be needed before he was going to be deemed eligible for Formula 1. Who am I kidding? We all know what makes someone eligible for Formula 1 now, huh? Anyway, Nissany would make his debut in the Formula Renault 3.5 series driving with Tech 1 Racing. Whilst he did finish behind teammate Panis, he did score the team's only podium at the Red Bull Ring that year. The following year would turn out to be Nissany's breakout year, this time with Charouz Racing, I'm sure I did not say that right, at a time where they were disguising themselves as a Lotus team. Nissany would achieve 3 wins as well as an array of podiums throughout the season, including dominant displays at both Silverstone and Monza Monza, and was well in the hunt for the title until an average last couple of rounds saw him finish behind Arudsev, Delatraz and Dillman in the final season standings. The following year, Nissany would switch over to RP Motorsport in what would be the final year of the World Series Championship. With Renault backing out of the venture and a depleted field, now was a time for someone to make their mark as the final World Series champion. And of course, that title would go to Pietro Fittipaldi. But Nissany's venture was relatively good nonetheless, slightly less successful this year, with 1 win as well as 6 podiums and significantly ahead of his teammate Yu Kanemaru. After the collapse of the World Series, Nissany would make his Formula 2 debut in 2018, driving with Campos, with his teammate being Luca Giotto. It was a relatively difficult year for the team as Giotto would struggle to make sense of the car, despite a successful campaign with Russian time the preceding year, but still he managed to pick up several podiums and finish 8th in the standings. Nissany, on the other hand, wouldn't enjoy quite the same success as Giotto. I mean, it wasn't as bad as the situation at MP Motorsport in 2019 when they allowed for King Lord Raghunathan to barely qualify, but Nissany was outpaced on the regular, finishing 22nd in the standings with only 1 point to his credit, which came at Spa-Francorchamps. After a rather bare racing program for 2019, Nissany took part in the post-season testing with Williams. A month later, he would be announced as the official test driver for the 2020 season with 3 FP1 outings on the books, as well as a rookie test day. He was also announced as one of the drivers at Trident for the 2020 FIA Formula 2 season, and so yeah, I mean, what do we make of all of this? Well, I'd liken this to Sean Galal's involvement with Toro Rosso's, AlphaTauri. Money plagues the sport, but it's ultimately what keeps it going. Are there better candidates than Nissany? Yeah, sure there are. But the crucial thing is that unless Nissany has a stellar Formula 2 campaign, he's not going to get that super license required to take away one of them race seats. And the added funding to Williams ensures that the team can survive at least a little while longer. So it's not all doom and gloom, but nevertheless, we shouldn't fret too much over this. Test drivers come and go, and Nissany just adds to the list, which also contained his father, although hopefully, this time, a little bit more successful. What do we think, viewers? Keep it respectful, be wholesome, don't be a manus, and as always, I'll see you all later.